Well, good evening, Miss Swamp Rose. It is so good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's so good to see you too, AR. It's good to be back on panel with you. And my gosh, there's no shortage of things to talk about tonight, right?
Definitely. I hear it's booming. I know I've been gone for a couple of days, just over there getting these stupid things stuck in the eyes. But, listening to your work, because I always tune into your channel and have a good listen, it sounds like we've got a lot of stuff happening in that Bryan Kohberger case.
Mm.
No doubt about that.
Well, speaking of which, you look great. It looks like you're having some progress with your surgeries. And yeah, so I'm really happy to hear that's going well and you've got that process started. I'm sure your viewers are happy for that update too. And
Yep, we're moving forward. Let me tell you, I have a boss of a wife. When I say boss of a wife, I can kick and scream and act like a 2-year-old all I want to, and she
mhm.
puts that thing into gear, and the next thing you know, I'm ending up in a doctor and I'm going through the process. So even when I kick and scream saying I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it, well, there we are. We're doing it. So I do want to let everybody know because I've just had overwhelming outreach of support and love, and Swamp, you're one of those, and I truly
Mm.
appreciate it. But everybody has been so gracious of their time and their love, and just know every day we are moving forward and it's getting better and better by the day. I know we have a lot of work still to do, but it's getting better, and I'm positive about it. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
And I think if I heard correctly when you were talking about this to me the other day, it might work out that you still might be able to attend this upcoming hearing in April.
I will be at the hearing in April. There's Jen and I mean, we have a lot of discussion back and forth about the appointments and what's going on, but we are hard at work to make sure these appointments allow me to be in Idaho like I have promised, so that Miss Swamp and I can cover this very interesting hearings on the 9th and the 10th. So I will be there for both days, not just one, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Hmm. Well, we owe you a debt of gratitude for going there and getting us that live coverage. It's so important for us to get accurate coverage and just know the tone and the look of everybody in that courtroom. And yeah, it's going to be amazing coverage. We're looking forward to it. So
Well, I think that we followed this case for so long, Swamp. Like, people don't understand as content creators, we really become a part of the case, not in the sense that we're like the lawyers or people, but we invest so much time into the research and the conversations and the communication with others to learn what we can, and then we become invested both emotionally, mentally, physically, and I feel like I just have to be there. I feel like that's a big part of where we are today. Um, because I followed this case since it broke. I started Facebook groups with many of amazing people. And then, of course, the YouTube channel, followed after that. So, oh, it's going to be interesting, but I have to be there. I got to be there, and I got to act appropriately, and I got to be respectful, and I got to keep my hands in my pockets, and I got to like behave.
and make sure you follow the dress code because that's definitely one of our updates tonight. Is there a specific dress code? Although I feel like it should be like something unspoken. Like, why would you be wearing graphic tees into the courtroom? For two reasons. One, it seems like you could put any sort of political statement. It doesn't belong like in a courtroom. Number two, because the way that I was raised and the way that I look at it is the judge who's making these determinations about them, the way you dress shows respect for the judge and respect for the court process. So I don't know why people would show up in graphic tees anyway. So I think it goes without saying, but now it's handed down. There will be no messages or slogans on people attendees in the courtroom. Which, again, I don't know if it has to go without saying, but apparently it does.
Well, I'll tell you, I take great pride when I walk into a courtroom of actually respecting the system and the justice system as a whole. So I do have suits in my closet, and I will be wearing a nice looking suit. My wife says she enjoys my multicolored and fashionable suit. So I will be in a suit, shirt, and tie. I will look appropriate for the part. And I will pick a spot within the courtroom that Jen and I feel comfortable that keeps us right down the center line of we're here for justice. We're here for innocent until proven guilty. And we'll definitely will mind our own so that we don't get caught up mingling or have some exchange of words with those that could possibly happen. But we want to respect the process in the courtroom. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we'll do a little filming for fun too. Outside of the actual court time, we will have a couple of pit bulls on the front doorstep of that courthouse to just let them know what it's like to have some pups watching over the justice system. So we will definitely bring that live to everybody.
I didn't realize Jen was going to be there. So we're going to have multiple channels for the audience. So Pity's Gone Stripping is going to be there. I can't wait to hear what Jen has to say too, because I believe that, female and male perspective, I think we all agree, are different. And it's going to be interesting to hear Jen's perspective from the female perspective of what she sees and feels and senses, what she observes. It's going to be good to have both of you in there.
I think it's important to have Jen's voice because, as many have tuned in and they respect my voice from the experience and the backgrounds of what I've been through being the defendant in that very courtroom and having to go through that. People need to realize Jen had to go through all of that as well as a loving wife in the courtroom, enduring everything that happens around you. The only difference is she actually got to walk out of the courtroom at the end of the day and feel the emotional chaos and trying to hold a job and do everything on a normal everyday basis, where I just kind of got cuffed back up and went back to myself. So at the end of the day, I think she may have the legitimately more difficult of experiences when it comes to the court process. And I'm excited to kind of get her take of what she's seen and what it's making her feel like. I think that's important. I think that's really important.
Right. Just she has something to compare it to. She has a baseline. That's amazing coverage. I can't thank you again that you're both doing that.
I think it'll be kind of an insight to what the Kohberger family would be feeling like if they were sitting in that courtroom, because this is loved ones. This is somebody that truly cares about the defendant and has to endure every step of the way of what's going on. And I think that's very important information and emotional feeling to be able to be felt by so many. Because at this point, before we kind of get kicked in, I know you've got some great talking points for tonight, and I'm excited about that. But one of my very back-minded views of what I've seen as these documents are coming out, and I've been able to stay behind the scenes and stay within myself, is I'm really getting frustrated by the fact now it's almost a laughing situation on one side when it comes to these documents, as if I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. I mean, it's a back and forth trying to defend Bryan Kohberger's innocence compared to the people that are just happy as daylights that he's going to be possibly put to death. And this is getting chaotic, and it's really sad to see.
It is really sad to see. And I think that it's really sad to see because it feels like it's being exploited in certain ways and online. And it does feel like there are favorite news outlets, and they're not necessarily who you would expect. You would expect probably the largest news outlets or central news outlets to have these things leaked to, but they're not. There seem to be people who want to report a certain slant. And I mean, it brings me to different questions I have, like with the selfie, like, where did Bryan Enton get that selfie? And just questions about the 911 call still. So, and even, is that the only 911 call? Are there other things that we haven't heard? And the state still has to prove their case. So no matter what, this is where, as people covering this case, it gets to be its most challenging moment. Either way, are we going to remain objective? Are we going to report honestly on the facts that we have? And if we can't put aside our biases, are we going to be able to tell both sides of this story? So I think that it is a challenging time for coverage, because you really have to dig to get both sides, because people are really digging their heels in certain instances. So.
And I know you probably endure it too. And I kind of want to make a quick announcement before I go into my next little discussion about exactly what you just said. So tomorrow, I'm pretty excited, Swamp, and I know you're going to be joining me as well, as we're going to be working with a new creator who's in our actual chat tonight, named Bootsy. I've had some amazing conversations with Bootsy. I know she's a big fan of yours as well. So I'm extremely excited, as she has a background on the law side of things. Very, very just well-spoken, very direct, in the manner of trying to get justice sought, as well as you and I are. We're not all here proclaiming innocence or guilt or anything of that nature. What we're proclaiming is we need to find the absolute real justice. And I think, Bootsy, I'm really, really looking forward to this. And, I want people that join us tomorrow night to definitely subscribe to her channel and give her some attention, because she has a very strong voice. And it's something that even catches my ears, which, Swamp, you and I both know not much catches my ears. Like, I just don't have the patience or the time to listen to a lot of stuff out there. But I'm excited for that. And I think the two of you, just by listening to you and then listening to her, this is going to be quite the engagement. I think that I'm going to be in the middle, just really doing my best to listen to the both of you make such good points that maybe I don't even need to talk tomorrow. Maybe I'll just sit in the background and just really listen to the great conversation. But I do want to say thank you for her. And I know one of her mods is in here. We're proud to have you, and we're thankful that you stopped in with us tonight. We look forward to tomorrow.
Yeah, I really do look forward to being on panel with you. It'll be cute. Bootsy and Kiki kind of sounds like a good pairing, I think.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm gonna have so much fun just trying to speak appropriately. I mean, when you put two beautiful women up on a panel, and then you got a beautiful wife in the background looking over your shoulder, it's like, boy, I've got to be so careful here. I can only imagine what I could do wrong. But I'm really, I'm definitely excited. So it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I do want to say a big thank you to everybody, not only in my chat, but also those that are over in Kiki's chat as well. It's great to see all of you, as always, and we're glad you decided to join us on this Friday night. So thank you so much.
Very much so. And speaking of which, maybe we can make it 4 squares, and you can get Jen up here with us. I don't know what you'll do with yourself then, AR.
Well, Jen works tomorrow, so thankfully I can't do that, because I could only imagine the 3 of you with little old me stuck in the corner of the stage. Oh boy, we'll save that one for another day. I'm sure it's coming, but we'll save it for another day, and maybe we'll do it on your channel only when that happens, so that I can hide it from my people.
Don't tempt me with a good time, ladies. Let's make it a date.
Sounds like fun. Now, I know you've got your notes, and I know you've been working hard while I've been back kind of being lazy. So what do we got to start with tonight? What's on your mind, Kiki?
Well, I mean, I would say if I'm going to go with what it seems everybody else is interested in, I have like a little secondary channel I was streaming the other day. And what really sparked conversation yesterday was when we were talking about the selfie. And I just brought up that one question that I posed to you: where did Bryan Ensign get the selfie? And I did hear that question inside my Discord. Shout out to my Discord server. That's the first question I would have, is let's go into this. I was wondering if we could go into the selfie and we could share a couple thoughts on that, because I do think it means something, and I think it doesn't mean something. And I think this is one of those things where when it gets tricky in this case, we can, if we can't put aside our biases, we can at least give both sides to this story and both sides to this argument. So I don't know if you want to start out with your thoughts and I'll interject mine.
So I just have just kind of a lead in simple question, and then I'm going to let you grab it from there. But I mean, it's a pretty simple question. This case is still under gag order, right? It's still sealed in Ada County.
As far as I know, it's sealed to gag. It's what's it called? I'm sorry, redact to. Well, now it's seal and then redacted version, but
okay.
I guess
I'm just
seal.
I'm just wondering. So, law enforcement most likely took Bryan Kohberger's cell phone into evidence when he was arrested, correct?
Yes, because I actually know he said, allegedly, I have an article where he was quoted by Jason LaBar as saying, "Have they checked my GPS? Don't they have my phone?" Basically, and
So
he
then,
said he was arrested.
What do we feel Bryan Kohberger took that picture with?
Well, I'm assuming his cell phone if they said selfie, but what are you getting at?
Okay, so he took, probably like all of us, when we take selfies, or pictures in today's society, we use our cell phones to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And as I understand, because I'm just kind of jumping into this, it's literally a couple hours after the crime was committed, whoever committed it. I'm not saying he committed it, but the crime was committed early in the morning, and this picture was taken at 10 something in the morning, correct?
Yeah, if I'd have to go look, but I believe it's like 10:31 or something like that.
So I'll make it quite clear where my point is that picture being on Bryan Kohberger's cell phone, which would be in evidence. It would be in law enforcement custody, digital downloads and everything from that phone taken. That would still be sealed and gagged in this case. So, Brian Enton, I think you need to step up to the plate and let us know who's breaking the gag order and releasing you actual sealed evidence, because it has to come from his cell phone. There's no other place to get that picture unless Bryan Kohberger himself decided to release it, which I highly doubt. I highly doubt it. Your turn.
No. Well, okay, so I wasn't even going to combat it like that, but when you say it like that, AR, you have a way of spelling these things out for me so that I understand them. And I didn't think of it from that perspective. I just assumed this was one of those things that was in the court proceedings of being released, but I don't know. It's just being asked in my Discord, and the way that you've just said it to me, it really does make me want to know. This entire case was changed from Latah to Ada County because they didn't feel that they could get the proper jury out of the select people that they had in Ada County. So when you hear of people messing with that process that was obviously so delicate that it was moved and changed forums, it just, for me, I'm sure for all of the people, the familiar faces who have been covering this for 2 years with us, you all are probably pretty frustrated by that. I want to just change gears and I want to ask a question to the ladies watching, to everyone watching who takes selfies, the chat. Do you just take one? That's another thing I was thinking is, like, usually it's not a one take. Like for me, like most things I do on camera aren't a one take. You want to get the best shot. You take a few selfies. So I wonder, when people categorize or they talk about like his stare or his gaze in that, was there a series of pictures and that's the one that came out, a little off? You know what I'm saying, guys? Like, I just wonder the context of the picture. In life, I'm really trying, or evidence-wise, I do want to take a moment and think of context. With evidence, it's only fair because that's why people end up taking the stand is to further context of evidence a lot of times. But I wonder, was that a series of pictures or was that the only one? And so I turn it to the chat. Do you believe somebody would just take one selfie or would they take a couple? I think They would.
Well, and to go along with what you're saying, let's say there are a couple of different pictures. The defense is always going to release the most prominent best picture for their case, which would showcase Bryan Kohberger in good, healthy shape after a supposed quadruple homicide, no cuts on the hands, nothing on the face. This picture to me absolutely looks from a prosecution side because this isn't the best version of what you would see Bryan Kohberger. This doesn't look as though this is a person that's healthy. I mean, he doesn't look healthy to me. He almost looks ill. Like he does look ill to me. And I'm not saying there's any reason for that. It could be possibly just a really bad picture. Trust me, I got many for me. I got a whole bad list of pictures of me that Jen just feels are the greatest thing. And I'm like, boy, that just made me look like the worst human being in the world. But that's the game that's going to be played here, especially with this. Now, my question, Kiki, because I don't know, and I'm going to rely on you on this, was this picture released through court documents that were part of motions or discussions by either prosecution or defense, or was this released specifically by Brian Enton and News Nation?
Well, okay, so here's the thing: is I didn't see this on any of the attachments, and so the answer is I don't know. So that's my answer, and I'm sorry to the audience. I don't know the answer to that question. I've been doing my best to keep up with the documents, but I felt like this just appeared online. I don't know, but I didn't see it as an attachment. I didn't see it inside of a PDF that I received. I received the screenshot from online. So, and then just the point to build off what you're saying with the lighting, bathrooms, particularly rental apartments, the type of lighting they always use, commercial, it's always fluorescent lighting. It's like the worst kind of lighting you could possibly have in the bathroom. And I want to add one more tidbit while we're just talking about the picture overall in general. You guys, remember when we heard about the shower curtain missing? I think it's interesting. Did you, and I don't know if it means anything or if it's worth even bringing up, but did you notice in like the right side of that picture, it looked like there's a shower curtain in the corner?
Yeah, there absolutely is. There absolutely is. So, so many people are jumping up and down about this picture. On one side, this is and Kiki, this is what I'm talking about where my frustration comes into play. You got one side of the room that's jumping up and down about how sinister and how bad this makes Bryan Kohberger look like a sociopath or a psycho or whatever it might be. They're picking this picture apart. And then on the other side, look, there's people like me that when I go in and I look into a picture like this, I'm looking for injuries. I'm looking for specific markings because I know when you wear the so-called face protector and everything that they're claiming that he had, the pullover, what do they call those? Ski masks. I'm sorry. Those leave marks in your face. They do. I know. I've worn them. Like, I get it. And then the gloves leave marks in your hands. So with everything that the people that are speaking negatively about the way that Bryan Kohberger looks, I go in with an open mind and start picking that picture apart. And for all of you that have told me time and time again that he utilized a shower curtain to wrap the inside of his car so he didn't get any DNA, I'm looking right at a shower curtain in his bathroom, supposedly just hours after the crime happened. So that just doesn't add up to the stories that I've been told.
Absolutely. And so it kind of plays on to another point about the shower curtain. So aside from thinking that the shower curtain was something used like to dexter out his car, which it really wouldn't make sense. And I'll tell you why, is because a used shower curtain, the gross, like if you were to think of something that contains DNA from your own home, it would be that. And why would you take articles that have victims' blood or something from a crime scene and mingle it with your own DNA? If you were a criminal, you probably wouldn't. But the shower curtain in there, to me, what that shows me is the emphasis on the shower curtain as something nefarious meaning the shower curtain's missing because obviously he was cleaning up and he had to get rid of whatever was in that shower curtain. Well, he's cleaned up with his buttoned up shirt looking like he's in a church outfit for Sunday. You know what I'm saying? And so if he cleaned up, just like you're saying, no traces of blood on his hands or no cuts or scrapes, that shower curtain would have been already contaminated. He would have instinctively wrapped that up and got rid of it for evidence. So it doesn't seem like it had anything to do with the crime that morning, is what I'm saying. And I want to address another thing while we're talking about the transfer, the possibility of DNA and intermingling with the crime scene in the home. And people online have said some things that I cannot tell you how many times I've read this comment, and I just have to address it because I don't think it's logical. And I don't know if you've read this comment too, but audience, have you heard people suggesting that the shadowing in there looks like he has dried blood in his hair and his eyes? It's like the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because if you like, if you're trying to cover up a crime scene, why would you have any traces of DNA on you? It's just the things and the wild rumors that get spread out of just a little picture like this taken out of context is crazy. And it brings us back to, is the judge concerned with people not giving a care in the world about the gag order? I don't know. You know, because this is what happens when things are taken out of context. Like a selfie that doesn't have all the other selfies showing poor shadow here, good lighting here. Just for the thought of, if you were examining to see if there were injuries on the hands, like partial evidence, again, getting entire transcripts with important parts redacted out. It's like, you just keep making the mystery linger. I don't know.
Well, at this point, we don't even have the absolute proof that that's a selfie from the exact time they claim it is. Like, I get they're saying it's 10:17 in the morning of the crime. Blah, blah. We don't know that. We don't know that proof. And with the way people are manipulating not only videos and pictures and audio and everything within this case, yeah, I've had people reach out to me. Did you see the Bryan Kohberger picture? It's clear that he has blood in his hair. That's a ridiculous statement to me. You know, and I've looked at that a lot today, kind of studying it. And at the end of the day, I just come back with, the kid needed a haircut. And guess what he did just a handful of days later? He got a haircut. Yeah. I mean, for God's sakes, I don't know many people, and I've been around a few, that went out and committed a homicide, and then they're back at home in their bathroom taking selfie pictures, wearing button-up shirts all the way up to the. I mean, most people are deflated and tired by this point. The exhaustion from the spent emotional chaos of what he would have been through. I don't see him in there giving thumbs up and doing selfies. I don't feel like that would be what he would do. But then again, I haven't sat down and had lunch or anything with this kid. So I can't tell you what he would do or wouldn't do.
I actually think that segues really well into my next talking point about the photo, which is, again, going back to the way this is being portrayed in mainstream media, the way the largest crime YouTubers that, are backed by networks are saying this. They're calling it a quote unquote trophy photo. So they're saying that this is, they're posing it to us like this. It's the creepy trophy photo. It's a photo taken the next morning, but I don't think that's the context of this photo. Like, that's such a subjective thing to talk about. There's no way you can turn to a jury and say, look at this. This is creepy. Like, it's a subjective thing. And so is the thought of it being a trophy photo. There's a 100% a subjective thing. It's not even circumstantial. My thought is the reason why there's emphasis on this is just simply for the eyebrows, because we've got the one bushy eyebrow, and then we've got this photo that's just a few hours afterwards. I think that that's what they're saying is the uniqueness about this photo. But I don't think that this could in any way be presented to a jury as like a creepy photo or a trophy photo. It's too much suggestion. And I don't think a prosecutor could like say that out loud. I don't know.
So also coming from the background that let's talk about trophies for a minute. Let's just really focus in on the idea of a trophy of a crime. a picture of yourself is not a trophy of a crime. So I've been around these really interesting individuals, and I see, I see somebody saying Ted Bundy did the same thing, kept his trophies. A picture of yourself to these individuals is not a trophy. A trophy comes from the victims or the crime scene that allows them to reimburse themselves at any point in time back into the feelings they had when they committed the crime. Taking a selfie picture, giving a thumbs up to your mirror doesn't seem to really be a trophy thing to me. I mean, I was never one that really needed trophies from the crimes I committed, but I wasn't also trying to relive the things I did over and over and over. Like, that wasn't why I did what I did. I didn't live through that type of life. But if Bryan Kohberger was to have kept trophies of this crime, remember all the rumors of them finding the girl's IDs in his parents' home in Pennsylvania. That would be a trophy.
Right.
A necklace off one of the victims that was found in Bryan Kohberger's possession would be a trophy. A picture of the actual victim would be a trophy. He doesn't need another picture of himself to be claiming to have gotten a trophy from this crime. That just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me.
Absolutely. And Mercy Cat makes a good point, which I hadn't thought of before, which is he does have a history of taking selfies very much at that angle all the way back to junior high. And that's a good point to bring up. A lot of people also were asking about the time frame. And, this has come up at least 3 times in Discord. So I feel that it's a point that the viewers want to talk about. But, I don't, God, trigger warning. I know this is going to trigger some people, but it was at 10:30. And he, as far as I know, his family is devout Catholics. Could he be getting a dress suit on to call his mom to go to online church? That's another thing somebody has been asking, saying that they had a habit of doing that too. I can't think of a reason why on a Sunday you'd have a buttoned up, all the way shirt, unless you're getting ready for a date, which I've also heard, rumors about. But again, we're all building off rumors. And I don't know if I'm getting off subject here. I probably shouldn't bring these random
you're talking about a photo that is a very interesting photo. Like, when you look at the photo, it's a very interesting photo. But like you said, it's how are we going to put this photo and what context are we going to put this into? Because it could go so many different ways. And unfortunately, we don't have the backing to where we should be putting this. Is there other photos that could possibly show more than this one does? Is that why they have this photo? Is there's more to this and it's just not out yet? But I do want people to take a deep breath, because I think that we got to stay really grounded when it comes to something like this. If it's out here right now, this has nothing to do with the damn case. Like, it's not being used in the courts. They're not going to use this to describe Bryan Kohberger. They're not going to use this to show anything in his bathroom. The defense could possibly bring it up and say, hey, look at his hands in the picture. This is supposedly a gentleman that used a fixed blade K-bar to take 4 lives. He doesn't have any cuts on his hands. None. And let me tell you, that's hard to do. It's very hard to do. I tried to cut an apple the other day and just about have no hands left. So, and that I know that apple was giving me the fight for my life, but I got it under control and I was able to save all my digits, thankfully. But this bathroom picture to me is just creating more dramatic conversation, and I'm sure you would agree, Swamp, that's taking the focus off what's actually so important within this courtroom setting. Now we have the back and forth happening, what's this all about in this photo, and And it's an important conversation, but I just don't think it's going to be used for anything in the court.
And that's really interesting. Yeah, the only thing I can think about that photo, and I think that full circle brings me back to the point I started with, which is there's no way that this is going to be presented as a trophy photo or a creepy photo to the jury. It's going to be there simply, I think, for the uniqueness of its eyebrows and DM's testimony. If they're using that testimony either, we don't know.
I mean, don't get me wrong, they're going to have exhibits with just crazy photos of Bryan Kohberger. This is what they do at trials. They even did it at some of mine to try to portray what type of criminal mind I actually had. So they would showcase these crazy pictures of me wearing face masks, yeah, and all these various things of clothing and gloves. And so don't get me wrong, they're going to have that all over the courtroom the entire time this trial's happening for people to visually see. And that's a prosecution strategy. But I just, this one doesn't send any type of weirdness or any type of weird thoughts through my mind. This picture doesn't do it, but I see others that are really clamoring about it. So I don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about selfies, if you don't mind, we can segue into a little bit of another subject with that same topic, which is the very interesting activities between, like,
I already know where you're going.
between like 2:10 a.m. and like 12 p.m. the next day at the 1122 King Road home, in pictures and photographs that we've heard about. Now, I know I segued into this talking about selfies because there's talk about, a full minute of pictures being taken prior to the 911 call being made. But with that said, there's a lot to talk about. And even when we talk about court, I do think that there might have been some indication from Ann and the prosecution early on that there could be some video that we're truly going to be talking about pretty soon that comes from somebody's cell phone. So anyway, do you want to start with that? And
now, I think this is an extremely important conversation to have because now we're segueing away from a so-called trophy photograph of a gentleman that everybody's already found guilty in his bathroom. And now we're segueing into what legitimately was happening in the crime scene home from the minute that Kaylee and Maddie returned home and walked in the door. So we're now, this timeline that's been delivered to us by law enforcement, they wanted to focus starting right around 4 a.m. They wanted to avoid everything before 4 a.m. And they had a good reason why. These two young ladies that everybody had been portraying as frozen shock face, scared for their life, couldn't believe they had to survive something so horrific, are potentially downstairs Snapchatting, Instagramming. And look, I'm not good at the social media platforms, so thank God I'm not sending 2 a.m. pictures to people because they would probably ban social media if I did that. But this is what our day and age and our youngsters do, and they're up at all times of the night. But what happened to, I was so intoxicated, I don't know if I was in reality or if I was in some sort of dream or a horror story. But now it's being proven you were awake the entire time. You were awake the entire time having a goofball of a time. And that doesn't fit into what's being delivered to all of us. You have to remember, this is what's being delivered to not only us, but the local community that have been supportive of the prosecution of this case, but also of these young ladies that have supposedly overcome one of the worst devastating things that ever happened in their lives. And now I don't see the serious nature of this crime within their actions. I just don't feel like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing that struck me, the very first thing when I started reading these texts, and you guys, I'm sure a lot of you felt the same way, is when we heard that DM was entering that contact into her phone, and Miss Potts truly, truly drove home the point today in her live stream. We heard in the PCA, Dylan was awoke at approximately 4 a.m. And I mean, it's maybe mincing words to some people, but it's clear that she wasn't woke up. She was already awake. And it's just interesting how the narrative was, I mean, it was clear they knew that information then. Although I will say one of the interviews happened the day Bryan was arrested with DM. So maybe there was additional information found out then. Maybe they hadn't had the forensic downloads and somebody hadn't given all the details yet. I don't know. But I do know Dylan wasn't sleeping as suggested in the PCA at 4 a.m. So it's just an interesting thing. I don't know what it means, but it's our job to be curious. I see you got a comment up. I don't want to keep blabbing.
No, I'm enjoying what you have to say. I just wanted to put this up here because I mean, you have to understand, I don't know all the gizmos of today's day and age. When I was actually literally my criminal self, it was, started in the 90s, kind of went through the early 2000s into the middle of the 2000s. So today's technology is far different. Back in the days of when we wanted to people not to be very awake, it was like chloroform and different things of that nature. We knew of pills and different things that would happen at parties and different things of that nature. I don't know of vacuum devices that could be utilized to take people in and out of reality or whatnot. So I'm definitely not one that could give any type of information in regards to something like that. And I do want to say real quick, we got Post Woke World in the house, and I'm always excited to see her. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to work with her, Swamp, but just an amazing individual, and she has extended invite out for me to join her live, and I would love it if maybe you could join in on that, Swamp, to where the three of us can jump on, because I think again, you two would be amazing on panel as well, and I'd love just to be a part of that too. So Post Woke, if you have an open mind to that, I definitely want to say hi to you and thanks for being here and support of Swamp and I. But we'd love to work with you as a combo if you would take that opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I'd be honored to be on panel with you. Post, we'd love to make some plans. Please let me know. I love your channel. I love your work. And I love the live stream that you guys did a couple weeks ago. It was, I want to say it might have been 3 weeks ago now, but it was about 2 weeks ago. There's a great live stream with Post Woke World and AR. And it was a great listen.
I've had the opportunity to work with her, I believe, twice now, and a great experience, a fun experience, and just very comfortable, great conversation. So it's definitely, and that's something, Swamp, that I think that we're blessed that you and I have both been able to encounter such people. I know you got to work with Miss Potts, and you've worked with a couple of creators. So you got a couple more on the visual in front of you, and it's always fun to be able to do that. It really is.
Yeah, there's definitely some creators I really want to work with. I've been talking to my mods about and visiting their chats. And it was really fun having Miss Potts on a couple weeks ago too. I want to work with her again. I'm glad she's been doing such frequent live streams and keeping our community up to date with her transcript reads.
I love her personality. She just Miss Potts brings it. I mean, she brings it with authority and well spoken, but in a creative way. And I've always enjoyed her work as well. So I definitely, everybody in the chat, if you haven't had the opportunity to venture over to Miss Potts, please do so. Also, if you haven't had the opportunity, please go over to Post Woke World. Amazing as well. And she also works on a few other cases. She's really dove into the Karen Reed case, doing some amazing work. boots on the ground with one of her amazing mods who I'm becoming family with as well. So I definitely want to give them a shout out while we can. So
Absolutely. So while we're talking about this newly released transcript and then the part of it that came before the 911 call, I really think that we could take a long time talking about one specific thing, which is just the Snapchat, just the Snapchats, or the thought of a video upload. To think that a video was taken, it's not necessarily taken on the phone. Like when it comes to YouTube, I definitely utilize this as a place where I upload videos. I might even hit a live button and record something live if I want to make sure I'm documenting it live. It doesn't have to be public, it can be private. I'm curious to know if the Snapchat was used for typical Snapchats or if it was being used as something to record a video or upload a video. But back to the Snapchats, that I was sitting there thinking about this transcript because I read the transcript on a smaller channel yesterday that I had. And I was thinking about it today, and I just keep going back to this part of the May 30th hearing where Ann Taylor looks at Judge John Judge, and she's like, we have not received all of this video yet. And it seems to be this preferred special video that the prosecution loves so much for their case. I'm paraphrasing, but that's very much what she said. And when the judge said, I don't understand, are you talking about a video of the defendant's car? And she goes, this is nearly an exact quote. She goes, I am not talking about a video of the car. I'm not talking about any video of the car. I'm talking about a video, unless there's more that I haven't received yet, of the suspect. So it's a video allegedly of Bryan, but not of his car. So now that we hear about these Snapchats, and now that, I'm wondering, could that have been something? Did Bethany download something onto her phone to Snapchat? And then, I mean, it doesn't explain away the Snapchat after the fact, before the 911 call. However, and I'm not going to name names, I'm not going to go into details, but I will just say the rampant rumors at the beginning of this case that were very much squashed and put back down are making me raise my eyebrows now. Like, was there exchanging of Snapchats about this crime ahead of time? Is that completely fabricated? Or, is it based off of something that was the word on the street? Was there an early leak when this, early on in the case? Was somebody leaking investigative information? I will say, on the same topic of possible leaking information to the media, I mean, we were going over a lot of these mysterious posts on like 4chan, Reddit, Facebook. I'm just looking at my notes here. And we were even going over one that was posted on Reddit, allegedly from BK's sister. All of these posts had something in common, which is ultimately when they arrested BK, it was creepy how some of the verbiage was so close to either what happened at the crime scene or something related to the suspect. And so I just feel like, particularly when we don't see any warrants for 4chan and we know the disgusting things that were said on it, I think it becomes obvious when we start reading these things that had now known details that was likely police interjection into the case, fishing for somebody to take the bait online, because this is the new way you return to the crime scene in the digital era, is online. You visit, so anyway, that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get caught up as quick as I can with the doc. I mean, it was a massive document drop that happened, and as you know, Kiki, because you and I talk pretty much every day regularly, I was just off the map. I was doing some other stuff, so I didn't focus real hard until kind of today is when I started diving in. But I mean, I do understand what you're saying. Now, see, I'm by far not. I've never even used Snapchat. I don't even know what Snapchat is. I know it's pictures, and I know people use it every day. And I don't. I mean, to give everybody kind of an idea, I don't use Instagram. I've never been on TikTok other than someone trying to show me how to use it for my channel, and they made a couple of posts on it, and I have no idea what they did, so I deleted it from my phone. I've never been on Snapchat. I don't know what yickety yakety, whatever the hell that is. So when I speak of these things, it's kind of just an uninformed discussion on my part. But I can say I know a lot of people tore into people like WSU Kim Mom, and a lot of people tore into this so-called Dave that came out. And now I kind of sit back and I'm glad that I didn't say anything crazy out of my mouth at that time. And I didn't put these people down, because it sure seems as some of the things that they relayed out, boy, could they just very possibly be true. Because I'm telling you, just based upon the action that you're talking about, that we're seeing in the court paperwork now, guys, this isn't rumor. This isn't us out here yammer yammering about it. This is literally coming from the court documentation. There was a lot of action on a lot of different social media platforms in a lot of odd periods of times. And you have to remember, when all that was happening, you had 4 individuals that lost their lives feet away from them in that home. Feet away from them. People can argue, well, it's different levels of the house. Prove to me that they didn't go to those different levels of the house. Prove to me that these photos, because I know I had somebody adamantly reach out to me saying Bethany turned over some sort of drive, whatever it might be, I don't know what it was, that had pictures or video or something on it. And it's like, I never really believed that. I didn't believe it. But now you're telling me there's pictures taken. I'm reading it clear as day, Swamp. I'm reading it for myself, clear as day, as I'm going through that transcript with Dylan and Bethany. And it doesn't add up to 2 scared girls sleeping in their beds to wake up to an intruder to be in frozen shock phase. There's something documented here, and I'm just I would really like to know what it is. I would really like to know what they have that's documented.
Ooh, Phil, you said a lot there. Okay. So the first thing I will say is, when it comes to the people who are coming out and talking about this, I'm not going to discount, any of it. Right now, yeah, it gives a lot of validity to their statement. What we don't know is I don't know what the parameters were for speaking if you witnessed something that was pertinent to the case when it got sealed. I know what Cy Ray told me, that typically if it's to do with the case, and the case got gagged, you wouldn't be able to continuously talk about that if you could possibly be called for a witness, or if it could affect the other witnesses. However, if you're not a witness, then you can go out and talk. So I don't know what to make of all of it, but what I will say is this: whatever information was being presented to us, appears that they got it. If it wasn't from a direct knowledge, it came from somewhere direct, because a lot of these things sound real now. Now, I don't know about the other angles, the rumors about what happened. There was a lot of misinformation, but it seems like the accurate thing is the rumors went out, whether it was the house got shut up, or there was a party, or there was a frat, or whatever it was. Rumors were being spread early, but there was knowledge of the crime. I want to bring up a really interesting point that chat was talking about that I have down in my notes, which there's 2 points that you brought up that made me think. I'm not talking like word salad, sorry. 2 points I want to bring up right now is, first and foremost, first and foremost, the confusion, the panic that sets in when the 911 call, when we could hear it at that right before 12 a.m. When did the panic set in, and why? So if you have all this activity, the pictures, the Snapchats, calling a friend, we know the distress didn't last that entire time. Somebody would have had a panic attack if they were at the level of, like, say, Bethany or when did they start stressing out? And I'm not implying anything nefarious. I'm just saying, what happened? Like, did they go up the stairs and see something? Did they see indications of the crime scene? Why did they start freaking out that time? And if we're getting this wrong, could there have been another distress call? Because here's the thing is, like, on that phone call, the police arrive so quickly before they can even investigate the rest or on record investigate the rest of these deaths. Could they have been freaking out because somebody made an earlier call? And that's how the police got there within 4 minutes. Because even in a really nice neighborhood that's even closer to, that's not so rural, that's even towards the center of town, 4 minutes for the police to arrive is incredibly fast. Like, I do not think the police would be here in 4 minutes if I called right now. But they were. And so I'm wondering, was there a call beforehand? Did somebody else who wasn't on the crime scene call the police? Because one thing we didn't hear is, with the unconscious, the phone hung up so quickly with the 911 operator not knowing if she had to dispatch a forensic unit or the ISP investigative team. You know what I mean? Like, she must wonder if she had more knowledge. Was there another phone call? Did this distress come out earlier? There were some other things that threw me off when I researched this before. Like, there were some reportings that 911 call was made at 11. There were also other reportings that it came in at 11:56 and 11:58. That discrepancy isn't just random. It was out there. And so I do feel like, I mean, come on, we all have these instincts about, you should have called 911. You should have done this. You should have done that. Well, if we all have those instincts, don't you think the people they were calling or calling over had those instincts too? We're not in a bubble. If that's our natural reaction, it should have been the natural reaction of other people, unless we're missing part of the picture. Anyway, I'll talk to them.
I do not think that's the only 911 call that we heard. I mean, I know what we heard on that, and I heard the crying. To me, the way those young ladies were crying at the beginning of the call means they were already on a 911 call prior to that call, because their emotional chaos was already stirred. And I'm not going to go down the road. Like, I know there's been conversation of fake crying, fake this, fake that. And I'm not going to go down that road. I would rather state there had to have been some intelligent individuals around this crime scene that knew 911 had to be called prior to that phone call being made. That's my hope. I hope somebody did. The phone calls I really would zero in on, if people said, AR, you could zero in on these handful of things. If it's your picking of what you want to hear and know exactly what happened. I want to know what Bethany Funk told her parents at 7:00 in the morning. And I want to know, after those phone calls, what Dylan Mortensen said to her family. But even more importantly, if I could choose even more than that, I want to know what those parents, when they called back, said. Because that, to me, is the transfer of information from one that's at a crime scene to loved ones for advice. And I would like to know what advice those parents gave, or did they make the step and actually initiate a 911 call?
Oh, gosh, I mean, if we're going to list out the things that really would help me understand this better, would be if we just had some indication of Xana's forensic download of her phone. I want to know why the police assumed that it was Xana saying there's someone here. There's something about that. It wasn't just that she was the only one awake and moving. We know now that it wasn't true. The house was awake. There was at least 2 people awake, at least. I don't know. So I would want to know the forensic download of Xana's phone. And again, it's about the fear was induced. If we go back to any of the earlier things we heard, we can talk about the possibility that we heard that possibly Bethany found Kaylee and Maddie, you know, or the other thing, which is it possible that if we had law enforcement, if he was like Papa Rogers, and people have implied, we've seen forensics, we've seen under the good vibes signs, people analyzing the forensics there in the kitchen, pulling everything off of counters and into the sink to see who knows what, if there was blood spatter, possibly, maybe to see if there was a weapon missing. My point is this: if the crime scene, and there's a lot of speculation that Xana might have met somebody when the DoorDash came. If the crime scene was outside of Xana's room, I mean, we also heard from the cleanup company that came after the fact saying this was the worst crime scene they've ever seen. They couldn't sleep for 3 days. A battle ensued on the second floor. So on that second floor, was there other blood? And the other thing that would indicate that for me is hearing about the latent shoe print. Because if the shoe print is latent, it means there's other prints. It's, you know, the latency of it, and the reason why it could be important is because at that point, the booty might, or whatever covering could have worn off on the shoe and left an impression. But there should have been something on the second floor. So I'm just thinking they saw something, and maybe that's what made them panic, or I don't know. All these are speculations, you guys. We're just kind of like having a think tank with our chat.
Well, and if you remember, you know, we ventured down into this conversation, and in the past, I made this statement, Kiki, and I'm sure you remember. I felt as though the fight transpired starting in the kitchen area, going towards Xana's room, and I felt as though there could have been a substantial amount of evidence between that bathroom area and Xana's door, even potentially, you know, a body. I don't know if that's correct, and I don't want to throw it out there that I know that it is or anything, because I don't. But I have this gut feeling that a young lady that left her bedroom on the second floor to go downstairs would have seen something. And with the movements and the calls and everything happening from very early that morning, you got to remember, this is a Sunday morning. I don't know about you, Kiki, but if I tried to call my parents at 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning, they're either getting ready to go do something, like go to church, this or that. They're not going to be happy about my phone call. Like, they're just not going to be happy about my phone call at 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday. That's their day off. That they're going to enjoy that time. So, you know, we're led to believe that these are college kids that are going to be sleeping in, especially after a night of drinking, out and about. And these phone calls are being made early in the morning. Early, not noonish, not 1 o'clock-ish. 7:30 in the morning, calls were being made to Bethany's parents. And that tells me exactly what you're saying. The second floor has more to offer in the discussion of evidence than what's just behind the closed door of Xana's room. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that develops, because I don't think we'll know anything about that type of stuff. Even this judge is not going to open up that can of worms prior to trial. He's just not going to go there. And that's why he's keeping all of the exhibits and everything sealed. You're not going to know pattern of blood splatter. You're not going to know any of that until we get to trial.
Hey, you know, gosh, your chat is so on point tonight. Or, you know, we've got two chats here, so I'm sometimes not sure if it's coming from your chat or my chat. Anyway, our live chatters are so on point tonight. Wanted to bring up something I just saw in the chat. Sorry, this is going too fast. But the something that I brought up in the last one of the last panels I was on the show, which is we had Evil CJ come up here, and I was like, Evil CJ, don't you remember when I was on your show like almost a year and a half ago, and you spoke about your firsthand experience in these terrible types of crime scenes, and where it's not just about blood, blood has a distinct smell, and you know, trigger warning, everything we're about to say. And so does the death. But in this case, there was something more, which was horrific injuries. Again, major trigger warning, but to their organs. And this causes an incredibly noxious smell. And could that have been what's freaking them out? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how that by the door being open. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, and I watched. Well, no, I should say I listened. Jen let me listen to somebody on YouTube the other night. I don't even remember who it was, but they were talking about the fact that the back door was left open, so the smell of these bodies wouldn't have just wreaked havoc through that house. And I tend to disagree with that. I unfortunately have smelled a situation, maybe not this devastating, but I've been around the smell of death before, and it is strong. It is very, very strong, and I don't think the back slider door in the opposite kitchen is going to air out the house enough to take that away. You know, but I think to kind of keep going with what you're talking about here, Bootsy made a very important comment statement here that goes right in line of us discussing what's happening within these phone calls and the interactions. You have to remember as well, it's been clearly stated that Kaylee Gonzalez's family received a phone call well before the noon time, letting them know their daughter had potentially lost her life. You know, and of course, it's been stated in various ways. But you have to kind of wonder too now to put that into reference. And I'm not saying it's true, but that's what they've said. That's not from us. That's what they clearly said themselves, not us. Who called them? And how did they come up with the idea to call them? Why would they need to call them? Why would they specify Kaylee's death? And now it all comes out to tuition. Phone calls were being made before that 911 call. So who relayed their call that they received to Kaylee's family?
Oh, it's such an incredibly good point, because it hits on other things we've seen. Like, don't you guys remember? And this was covered by Chaos Sector in depth, and I covered it as well. There was that, I want to say it was the 2020 interview with Katie. And she's, you know, she's in that blue sweater and everything. And she's crying with her friend. And she said, we got the phone call, and they were talking about Xana. And they're like, it was in the morning. And it always stuck out to us because they were talking about being in the courtyard around 10 a.m. And we all thought that they edited out that 10 a.m. part. And people swore they heard them say 10 a.m. And it was this big debate on YouTube for several months. So there's the Katie interview. There's also that interview that we put aside because it wasn't anything close to what was on official record. So we tabled the discussion. But we have a very respectable news journalist who had reporting from a neighbor who she said she had confirmed or verified, which means typically you have more than one source, that the front door was open at 8:30. I don't know if it would have been left over from the night before, but anyway, turn it over to you.
Well, yeah, no, that's important too. So we've got a witness walking with the front door being open at a very early point of time, and that would be on the exact floor that Bethany and Dylan were supposedly on, and we know they're awake. We know they're awake because Bethany called her family at 7:30 in the morning. We know they're awake based upon their own digital imprints of their phones. But I mean, yeah, and all of that's important because what they see, what they know, and these are the very important things that are going to be discussed. Trust me, that this is all going to be discussed when it comes to trial. I know people have told me, oh, they're going to avoid this conversation. This isn't going to happen because, you know, Ann Taylor's going to have to be careful to not put these two young girls up on the stand and make it look overly emotional and attacking. Oh no, now with this information out, she's not going to hold back. I mean, this is going to be it's going to be a gruesome cross examination when those two young ladies take the stand. And one of the big questions in circus music, who I always find her when I've gotten into conversation with her, she makes just excellent points, and it really keeps me focused. So I'm appreciative of this one as well. How does Dylan and Bethany not say something or get upset with Murphy upstairs barking for legitimately 30 minutes? Like, you're calling everybody, you're not getting any response. You're supposedly you saw somebody walking through your house, which, okay, maybe that doesn't freak you out, but wouldn't you be a little hesitant that not one person in your house answers the phone? Not one? You got 4 more people you know are in the house. You're calling all of them. You and Bethany, Dylan and Bethany, nonstop calling. No answer. That doesn't trigger something in the mind, especially with the dog going nuts upstairs. Come on, Kiki, you're a dog owner. I'm a dog owner. If we're sitting in our bedroom and our dogs are out in another part of our home and they're nonstop barking, we're going to figure out why. Or we're at least yelling from the bed lazily at the top of our lungs to shut up. We're going to give them some recognition. Why is none of this, like, why are people just missing the entire point of why all of this is so important? Like, I understand some people just don't want to go with innocent until proven guilty. They just want to drive home that this young kid's guilty and that's all it is. But you have to look at the bigger picture, because outside of just this crime, how do we teach and help others know for the future this can't happen this way? This is not how this should be handled. Nobody's willing to have that conversation. They just overlook it. And I'll give you a little example, and then I'm going to throw it back in your way. But this is a little example. I had a very important conversation with my wife the other day, and it was dead serious on my part, and she knew I was dead serious when I told her I'm going to end up dying in our living room, and you wouldn't even know it happened because you don't pay good enough attention. And she sat back and she listened to me when I presented it to her. I said, "You're absolutely amazing at making me go get the treatment. You're absolutely amazing. But literally, there have been times where I'm struggling to even move and you're 3 feet away from me." And she didn't catch it. It's because she wasn't looking for it. Nobody had told her, like, you really have to watch for this, this, and this, and this. And, I don't feel as though, looking at the situation with Dylan and Bethany, either you completely were not taught as an individual to watch for these very important things that people's lives could be lost and you wouldn't even know, or you're just capable of intentionally overlooking it. And that's a scary thing. And that's going to be a big discussion, Kiki. When this gets to trial, that's going to be huge.
I mean, there are tough questions to ask, and it's our job to be curious, and it's our job to ask the tough questions. And I think that kind of at some point, a lot of people are alluding to, is there culpability here? Do you have responsibility of a good Samaritan law application here? If you think something went down, to make a distress call, do you have, and then you talk to a bigger picture about maybe, could this, are we looking at a generation that was taught retreat, hide when you hear danger and you're in a group setting because of all of our school pow, is that what we're looking at? is it as bad as what people are saying, that this is an indifference? And I don't want to think anything of that sort. I'm just bringing up the questions that people ask. But just to go with what the chat was talking about with the dog, so the audience just to make sure the whole audience is on the same page, everybody knows in the PCA when it says that Dylan was initially awoke, which now we know, right, like within the 8 to 9 minutes prior to that, she was entering something into her phone. She was creating a contact. So she wasn't awoke, but she was indicated something was going on upstairs by what she thought was the sound of dogs playing. And we just go back to all the different activities we see in that house, whether it's filming TikTok videos, whether it's being loud, being all of the things that they did that we've seen, witnessed in videos of all the noises. Why does she think that it was an indication of the dog playing? What I'm getting at is she probably heard dog noises. So at 4 a.m., there was likely the dog barking there. Now at 4:17, the Ring doorbell of the neighbor's Ring door cam caught a loud thud, whimpering, and a dog barking. And that was at 4:17. And we know that DM knew what time it was because she was awake and entering that contact roundabout. So what we're getting at and what the chat is trying to emphasize is the dog was at least barking for nearly 20 minutes straight, according to what we understand from the PCA. And that is speculation, but it sounds pretty accurate. And it brings home AR's point. If you're a dog owner, it's pretty unbearable to listen to a dog bark solid for just a couple minutes. I mean, it's something you go to stop. It's not, as a human, you're meant to respond to that noise. That's their job. It's to let you know someone's here. Yeah, I don't know, but it does amplify things. And if we're looking for future lessons, what can we learn from this? If a dog is barking and you've seen an intruder in your home, like, do we need one thing, two things? What can this teach us in the future? I don't know, but it is unanswered questions. How does a dog bark for 20 minutes? And it doesn't raise the suspicion that this is more than a prank. I don't know.
I get it. Even when the victims' families came out and spoke about a possible prank scenario, and I can't argue it because I don't know. I don't want to be the one that comes out, just starts pointing the finger saying, this is your fault for this, this, and this. But I could tell you, just based upon like how I am as an individual and what my emotional capability would be in life, is if something like this happened to one of my loved ones, and I get it, it's a little different scenario. You have a child compared to if somebody came and did this and my wife's life was taken. And then I come to find out the very scenarios that were happening during the time that my wife's life were taken, I wouldn't be as forgiving. And maybe behind closed doors, the victim's family struggle with the forgiving aspect. They put on a good visual for all of us, but behind closed doors, they struggle. I don't know. Me, I would be just very vocal. I'd be very upfront. I'd be pissed off. I wouldn't hide it. And I know when this goes to trial, and that's where the dissecting of that time frame is going to happen. Ann Taylor's going to be on this, and she's going to do her very best to discredit both Dylan and Bethany's, or Bethany. I don't even know what I just called her. My mind went in a whole different way, but she's going to try to discredit everything about them. But at this point, and this is a serious question, Keegan, and I'm going to ask it directly to you. And I'm interested also to know what our chat's going to think. But if I ask you the serious question, what's discrediting Dylan or Bethany legitimately going to do, considering I think all of us right now don't see them in a creditable way anyway. They're already discredited. So what's going to change? What's going to change? And that's why I think it's important that Ann Taylor makes a spectacle with them on the stand. And some people will disagree with me that we need to show them compassion. I don't think we do. And I wouldn't be one that would do it myself. I would not give them compassion if I was a father of one of these kids that lost their lives. I would show absolutely no compassion. So I'm sorry.
I mean, it's a really, really powerful statement. And I know that a lot of people probably feel the same way. I will go back to what I have on record as far as verified, which is Ethan's family. I believe it was his sister-in-law came out and said that the girls, they wanted some answers. And they were, I believe they were specifically referencing DM. And that Facebook post that was verified came out, I want to say it came out in like early December. My curiosity is, did they get those answers? Were they satisfied? Because we didn't hear that particular family come back out and re-ask these questions. And what's interesting is they have boots on the ground. They have kids in that school. They have kids close to and I call them kids, the young adults that were at that crime scene. So the question I have, did they get those answers? I don't know. It's the first question I have, but it would be turning to Ethan's family. I wanted to make another point about Maisie later on became a sweetheart. I wanted to say something about maybe the fraternities, but I'm not quite sure if it was Sigma Chi or which fraternity brothers were there, but I know there seems to be some reconciliation there. So I'm curious, did they get the answers they want? But it wasn't that the parents weren't saying anything. They wanted to know. We also heard the Gonzalez in an interview say they cleared her really fast. We all broke that down and we all heard her say that. And so we wondered, did the Gonzalez too have some questions after the fact? I mean, it's a completely legitimate question to have. I don't want, let me see. I don't know if I have any more points on that. I don't want to trail into another subject just yet, unless you're ready.
Well, I just want to kind of respond real quick, just in regards to, I understand what Steve Gonsalves is doing right now. I see him doing his very best to stay focused on getting it to the trial. And what he's doing is he's asking people to understand what Dylan and Bethany did by ensuring that they're not being blamed for whatever happened in that home. But my question, when it would come to that, I get what you're doing visually before all of us, and I can understand why you're doing it. But behind the scenes, do you really feel that way? Do you really feel that way? Because I get you want Bryan Kohberger to be found guilty at trial, and you're driven to ensure every part of you makes that happen. But really, when you crawl into your bed at night and you got to hug onto your pillow and you got to think about your day and you got to think about your month and you got to think about the pain that your wife and your family's enduring, do you really forgive? Do you really, really do that in private? And that only he could answer that. I can't, I can't answer that for him. And I'm not here, someone says blaming someone else isn't the answer ever. And I agree. I'm not blaming anybody, but I can tell you right now, something was happening in that home more than just the crime being committed. There are two young ladies that were wide awake through the entirety of the crime. And after the fact, instead of calling to let's just even move on. Maybe they couldn't help the deceased. Maybe the deceased were so deceased you couldn't get them help. You could have still potentially caught the suspect in the area, and you could have potentially brought those families quicker closure that their family members didn't lay and suffer and all of this. So I'm not blaming. I'm pointing directly at actions that legitimately took place that had no respect or regard for the 4 lost lives in that house. And don't tell me it's because they were intoxicated. Don't tell me it's because they were sleepy and they didn't know if they were in fantasy world. No, they were playing on social media, taking pictures, adding contacts to their phones, calling their parents, acting as if life was just another moment of normality. That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. I'll pass it back over to you because I know sometimes I get emotional and I can say some pretty direct things, but that's just how I feel. That's how I feel.
Well, the first thing is I appreciate your passion, and it just proves another point to what you're saying is it shows your honesty. And when you ask these questions about the victim's family members, do they feel this way that they say publicly that they do behind closed doors? I think that in this modern era, we want people to be consistent and with integrity. We want them to say the same thing and honestly tell an audience how they feel and not what they're saying behind closed scenes. So I hope that he's consistent. I would believe he probably feels the same way he presents, but I would hope, but the fact is that you're not doing anything wrong with the questions that you're asking. When you're sitting here asking questions, you're not calling names, you're not shaming the victims, you're not attacking the way they look or something like that. When you're asking questions, you're not blaming the victims, you're simply bringing up the points that we know for a fact that the defense is going to bring up in less than 4 months. We've been covering this case now for what? Going on 2.5 years. So I mean, I don't think that I don't want any of my viewers to think that I'm blaming anybody either. We're bringing up the curious questions that we know are likely going to come up from the defense, the questions that are going to have to be answered so that there aren't alternative suspect theories and reasonable doubt coming into the jury. And so these are tough questions, but they're realistic questions. And the fact of the matter is they're going to be answered in court or before court. So.
Oh, wait. Sorry, I had to chase down my Diet Pepsi. It started to roll away on the floor. So here I am trying to grab it. But, and that's one reason why, Kiki, I enjoy working with you, and I do my best to be selective of the people that I align myself with to have these tough discussions, because I don't want to attack any of the victims for any reason. I don't care if they drank alcohol. I don't care what their daily routines were. They're victims of a horrifically bad crime. I have questions in regards to Dylan and Bethany's actions and how that could relate to the actual crime and their potential either knowledge or even involvement. But these are questions based upon the exact manner that the defense is going to attack this. I mean, we see it in the motions of limine. We see how the defense is laying this out. We know where they're going to go with this, and that's what I'm directly speaking on. I personally, I've had conversations about what I felt about Dylan, and I've had these interactions and conversations, but I don't find relevance to continue into that discussion of potential boyfriend, this and this and that. The fact of the matter is Dylan Mortensen was in the crime scene home. She was awake. She was actively on her phone and social media. And I believe the defense is they're going to focus in on that when it comes to trial. So I've done zero content on it. I've done zero discussion in regards to it. And I've done that intentionally because I could have very easily gone that route and I could have dissected it. But at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you this right now. All of that's a diversion from what's really the most important thing that's going to be happening in these hearings and at this trial. It's all DNA. This case is won and lost by the DNA, the IgG, the knife sheath, the credibility of how that was done, the chain of command, everything about that is what truly matters. But as we've watched, and it happens every single time, Kiki, every time you and I have had this conversation, here's another hearing. Guess what's going to happen? We're going to get this big load of information that goes right in line with what should be the most important topic of conversation. And now they're venturing in another way. And guess what? I hate to say it. They're using Dylan Mortensen as an absolute scapegoat. She is the weight of the world on her shoulders because, look, law enforcement, everybody dumped everything on her. Everything's dumped on Dylan.
Starting with the PCA.
Let's just throw her under the bus. Here it comes. And we all knew it from the very get-go. The minute that PCA came out, we go, oh, look at that. They just threw Dylan under the bus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to make sure I'm being clear what I'm referencing when I say that. So the first one is going to be the fact that when Xana says she's recalling what she thought was Kaylee saying there's someone here, the police said, well, in conclusion of our forensic download of Xana's phone, we believe it was Kernodle saying that. So not only are they saying it's a different voice or a different person, but they're saying it's on a different floor. That's right. A pretty big discrepancy. And so it always, no pun intended, made us raise our eyebrows to that. But the other thing that we found out in the January 23rd and 24th hearings is that she also suggested that the victim was, they didn't say who, but they said the victim was running up and down the stairs. And they dismissed it and said that can't be true because that victim was already proven deceased in their bed. And that's something forensically they probably would have known. But to deny that she saw anything, and could that have meant something? See, I don't want to blame. It's not about blaming either. I want to know every detail that you can recall. I want to know everything, just as a curious person. I'm not saying it's admissible into court, but it's interesting when we talk about star witness and the way that the information is being, the way they're selectively utilizing the information. Shouldn't it be done in its totality? And how did it all come out? And what was the difference in testimony? Was there more testimony or additional testimony when he got arrested? Because there was that additional interview after he got arrested. And when did all these details come out? I don't know. There was 4 interviews with DM as far as I understand. It's just curiosity. This is our job to be curious. And you want to know as a viewer, what kinds of things is Ann Taylor going to present to this person on the stand? What is the prosecution going to preemptively come out with to paint a narrative before Ann Taylor gets the chance? And they don't know what each other are going to say. They don't know what angle they're going to take. So we're vetting all this out right now. And we don't even know what the redacted parts of this are. It's kind of crazy.
So I kind of want to make and thank you. I know it's kind of like a half-ass goatee, but thank you. I appreciate it. I got to do a little better. Somebody said they love my goatee, and I definitely got to do a little better job at grooming myself. But I'm just kind of my hair is all over. I mean, it's not a pretty sight. But I'm going to make a pretty bold, and this is just me, open door policy, AR Hayes. And this isn't how I feel across the board. I want to get that off first. I have, and I've made the very statement, I believe our justice system does right for many. I believe law enforcement works hard and does right for many. I believe they need more training. I think they need more help. I think they need more funding. But in most cases, I think they do a stand-up job and they do well. But I will make a clear as day statement because I've been through the system. I know how this works from an intelligent point of view, because I don't feel as though when I was going through the system, I was just some ignorant person that was not paying attention. I was very involved in my cases. I was very involved in the process. I was very involved with everything going around me. And I'll tell you right now, everything that I'm seeing, and I'm just looking at the one case, I'm just talking Idaho 4. There's a lot of shady. There's a lot of behind the scenes dishonesty. There's hiding. There's it just, to me, and we're going to see this come out at trial, because pre-trial, and I know people say everything has to be honest when it's going through these hearings. Everything has to be honest. It doesn't have to be. The word salad, like we use that word salad, can happen in the courtroom. And we could word things in documents a certain way to try to get people to think a certain way. That's not truly the way that it is. I'm telling you, there's some deceit that is happening on the prosecution side of this. One, they're already trying to hide the IGG. They're trying to dismiss the fact that they broke their own policies in the FBI and all of this, because that looks negative on our justice system. That's negativity that they don't want brought to this case. But guess what? I'm going to tell you, I know people on one side of all of this are jumping up and down like this case is won, that the guilty verdict is rendered. They don't understand. This case is not locked up. This case is not won. The misinformation is flowing and getting people's emotions to feel as though this is locked up. And I guarantee you, when we get to trial, you're going to see some very different explanations of this evidence than what you're seeing right now. This K-bar knife purchase through Amazon and everything of that nature is going to be explained very differently by the prosecution than it is right now. And it's going to make a lot more sense. Like, I feel like he potentially bought a K-bar? I do, but I think he bought it in Pennsylvania, and I think he utilized it in Pennsylvania, and that's going to be a part of this case. So the stories are going to be different. And that's what my frustration, when I came to this platform, I wanted to help people legitimately see what the system is truly like, what it actually is. And the battles that we're watching right now, these back and forth in motion and limited, I want people to grasp this statement. I want you to grasp this too, Katie. These motions in limine are literally things they want excluded from trial. They want it out. So the battle is, the prosecution doesn't want some shady conversation out because it helps them build their case, where the defense is like, this stuff is out because it's a fairy tale story. It goes both ways. I mean, obviously the defense is grasping at straws by saying, hey, you can't use certain words. You can't use murder. You can't use psychopath. Look, the judge is not going for that. That whole, you can't use these words, he ain't going for that. Like, those words could be used. Now, I'm glad he implemented. You would like me. You let me know they're going to have a dress code.
Right.
So I guess I need to make sure that I'm dressed appropriately while I'm there, and I don't have my. I had some ideas, but I'm glad you backed me off of those, because they probably would have been inappropriate. But my diaper, my little toy in the mouth, whatever I could have gotten away with, I would have tried. But just know, like, I'm privy to what I'm seeing, and we're not seeing the actual case being presented to us. And some are jumping up and down, shaking all around, like they're seeing the absolute truth being displayed. And they think that this case is done and over, and it's far from that. Like, it's far from that. Otherwise, the defense would have folded. the defense would have already folded by now, and they have not folded. So,
I mean, you're bringing up kind of like what the grand finale of my talking points are. And I'm so glad that you instinctually came to this particular point, which is this case hasn't been won yet. We have this information, but the case still has to be presented. And when we talk about the K-bar knife, which was the very last thing, the point that I have written down, except for a couple of rebuttals to what the chat and you have been saying, is when we look at the K-bar knife, it was purchased on a group Amazon account 8 months prior. So they're using a witness to place the K-bar to BK. And so I'm not saying that they can't do that. What I'm saying is that's a different thing than having, they're looking for they're looking to have, the defense was looking to have the click activity excluded. So it's a click activity that's going to lead to what computer that was ordered from, who was doing that activity, which credit card, that type of stuff. So, the click activity was ordered along with the Amazon warrants. So I have this, aside from the evidence, anyway, my point is this, is they still have to prove it. And it's still part of a case. And a couple of other things I wanted to bring up that you were talking about that they're going to have an issue with, that looked so shady before we even got to all of these things, which feel like we're being pulled in all these other directions, was we were having these in-depth conversations about chain of custody. And these conversations were about regarding whether they were going to do a Franks hearing, if there were Brady-Giglio violations. And when the judge said there wasn't going to be a Franks hearing, well, all of us really feel like there's going to be these massive conversations on the stand about who handled the raw biological evidence, which labs processed it, and then it's going to maybe come back to Othram. I do see some issues and things I present to my audience, and even new information I haven't had a chance to present to my audience that's in these new documents that actually Lana from Truth and Transparency has pulled out of these documents, which basically is saying, do we even know that Othram had the certifications and the qualifications to process this stuff? Were they even the ones who processed it? Because when we look at the billing, we only see for the billing for the touch transfer DNA. So who and when processed these other unknown samples? We know the defense didn't have them until 2023, like 6 months after. They still were unknown at that time. So where did the evidence go? Who handled it? And then it goes back to other things. Like if there's other evidence that is going to be presented at court from Bryan Kohberger's apartment, we had this extensive conversation about the shower curtain earlier. Okay. If there is something like from, I don't know, they had hair strands and dog strands and vacuums. If they are presenting DNA evidence, is there going to be a chain of custody issue because of Don Daniels? And the way that she handled not only the evidence, putting it in the storage locker, and I do understand ISP was on the scene, but I don't believe it was taken out of storage locker number 35 for like 7 to 10 days. The DNA evidence, which was already deteriorating by its nature. There's that issue. And then there's the issue that should and probably will be brought up, which is when you're executing a search warrant, let alone a freaking search warrant for the largest murder case in the entire world. Like, you do it by the book, and you don't forget to put a receipt and then go slide it under the defendant's door afterwards. And I'm sorry these things are harsh, but it's not me. This is the story, and these are the difficult things we have to talk about, because you better believe a man who's facing a possible firing squad's attorney is going to bring these up in court. It's not going to be the only time you hear this. It's going to be brought up, and we can look at all these documents ourselves. We can read it with our own eyes, where the mistakes were in the chain of custody at WSU. So I don't know, I'll toss it to you with that.
No, and I think those are amazing points. And I just want to quickly, as we're getting on 2 hours, so we'll kind of wrap it up here in a minute. I just want to make one final point. I want to go directly at the supposed Amazon purchase and the click history. And I've listened to other people speak upon how devastating to the defense that is. And I just want to give my 2 cents real briefly about how I feel about this. So the defense is looking to exclude all the click history and everything of that nature, which makes me feel as though there is no hammered down actual evidence that would be so damning to Bryan Kohberger, because they're literally motioning to exclude simple things as click history and things of that nature. And the way they've specified it is we don't want the prosecution to be able to tell stories based upon a shopping. And you're right. This is a family account that numerous people can order from. But even set all that aside, the lying and the deceit comes from the people now that are claiming, oh, they've got a witness that's going to testify to Bryan Kohberger potentially not only buying the first one, but a second one. Okay, look, I have common sense in life. That's a family member. That's a family member that law enforcement approached and said, hey, we're looking to see if your son made any purchases that could have any relevance to this case. And the family said, sure, we'll open up our Amazon account. You're more than welcome to look through it. Now they're utilizing the terminology that that's going to be a witness. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen, let's just be real about it. The father was going to have to take the stand anyway because he rode across the country with Bryan Kohberger in the car. So he's going to be called to testify at the trial. That means here's your witness. But this is the way that manipulation can happen through the documentation in the courts. The prosecution saying, no, we have a witness. We have a witness. You're damn right you got a witness. You got 4 people that use the same Amazon account. They're all considered a witness. They didn't see anything. They're just on the account. So what's going to happen is they're going to be called, did your brother use the Amazon account? Yes, he did. Did you ever see him make purchases on Amazon? Yes, I did. Did those deliveries come to the house? Yes, they did. Did you potentially see him buy a knife in March of 2022? Yes, I did. Okay, that's all for the questions. Thank you for your time. That's your supposed witness that he bought the murder weapon? No, that's your witness that he shops on Amazon. I'm sorry. I mean, come on.
Absolutely. And that's why they're asking for the click history. I completely agree. I'm asking for the click history. And the fact that it's being asked to be put in lemony means that it's not as cut and dry. Like there's something.
Right. If that was a substantial part of the evidence, Kiki, the defense wouldn't even motion for that to be eliminated because they would know it is in the evidence of the prosecution that's going to be used at trial directly against Bryan Kohberger to prove the steps of him getting the murder weapon. If the defense is asking for it to be thrown out, it's because they don't want the manipulation of what they found on that computer to be utilized to build a theory of how he got the murder weapon. Or a theory. I mean, come on. Let's think about this. A witness that he was buying a K-bar to replace the original K-bar. How do you know he was buying anything to replace something? Did Bryan Kohberger tell you that? Did he come to you and say, hey, I'm shopping on Amazon right now. I hope you could be my witness because I need to replace the murder weapon? Nobody could come testify to that. That's all fluff and duff in the court paperwork that will never be said at trial. It will never be said at trial. I can say that from a defendant's knowledge. No prosecutor can step before a jury and say, well, after the crime was committed, we see that he has click history on his computer. We know for a fact he was buying a replacement for the murder weapon. Prove that without a reasonable doubt. Prove that. Well, we have a witness. No, you have somebody that uses the same Amazon account that potentially was clicking on those clicks themselves. It doesn't hold up at trial. And I see people running with it every day. I see people running with that every day. That's the damning evidence now that has sealed the door on Bryan Kohberger. He's guilty. He's guilty. He shopped on Amazon. He's guilty. Come on. Let's be real about that. Let's be real about it.
100%. I mean, here's the thing it makes me think of when you say that is that on like late December, we have Jay Logston finally come out in writing, in official documents, and say, okay, the state got to Bryan Kohberger and via investigative genetic genealogy. Then we had AT reiterate that in the next like 60 days. So this is how they are saying, the defense team is saying, this is how the state got to Bryan Kohberger. However, the way that it's being presented into the media is that somebody called in a tip. It's a witness. They called in a tip. That's what AR is alluding to, is the narrative that's being run is the reason why they're saying witness is that somebody reported Bryan and they knew the name earlier. If that were true, then AT wouldn't have said, we don't know how they got to our client. She said that how many times for 2 years? We have no idea how the state got to our client. So if they did have that information, if that was true, if a family member did call, no, like AT didn't know how they got to their client. That would have been like a witness. She would have seen that evidence. It wouldn't have been a mystery to her, sealed up until this point. So
What do
it's
you think?
not.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think Ann Taylor's going to stand before all of us and in front of the court, knowing that Bryan Kohberger's family is who turned him in, and get up and say, we don't know how they got to our client? Come on. If your own family turns you in, you know it. Like, you know it. But, I mean, just kind of finalize my portion of this, because I definitely want to let our crowd go and enjoy their Friday night. I know it's late for you, but my lawyer one time sat down with me because I was questioning her so hard as I was getting nervous. We were getting ready for trial, and I didn't understand what was going on. And she broke it down real simply for me. And it always made sense after she broke it down for me. The back and forth of the documents pre-trial is a bunch of just lying capabilities to prove a theory. They want people to feel the theory. They want people to base their emotions on a theory. But it all changes when you get in front of a jury, because now that theory has to become a story that, one, makes sense, and two, is backed by facts. So you can lie and do whatever you want to do to try to get people's attention and get them on the emotional side of guilt right here, right now. But I'm telling you, when this rolls into trial, this is going to be a totally different tune being sung. And the prosecution's not going to be able to rely on a theory anymore. Now they have to actually tell a factual story backed by real and true evidence that would make sense to a jury, because they could be held in contempt if they don't follow the guidelines of truth. So we're going to see a different scenario when this. There's going to be a lot of change right after these motions eliminate. Like I think you and I have been spelling this out. This is a huge hearing coming up. Huge. Because these are the very things that will never be spoken of again in the Bryan Kohberger case. They're gone. They're out. There could potentially be no more DNA at the end of this. There could be potentially no more text messages and talk from Dylan Mortensen of being able to see things and all this stuff. It could be out. There's still evidence that's going to get tossed, even though we're past the suppression and all that. There's still going to be stuff that can't be spoken of. And it's going to be very interesting. I can't wait to be in the courtroom. Like, I can't wait to be there. I know I'm going to be nervous. I'm going to be like, am I on trial here? Am I on trial? Am I going to jail today? Am I going to jail? But literally, I want to be there, and I want to feel what it's like to be a normal everyday citizen and watching the justice system in person with my own eyes work. I think it would be very interesting.
Well, don't get any PTSD. We need you in there fully alert. We have backup guys, though. We have Jen.
Yeah,
There.
no, Jen will tell you I'm pretty crazy when it comes to like the emotional chaos roller coaster you would think somebody would have. I just really don't have it. Like I don't have the PTSD. I don't know why. Maybe because I just didn't care walking through that part of my life. But I'm not going to have it walking into that courtroom because I'm a free man and I know I'm doing right. I know that I've made a decision in my life to do right. So now I can stand with my shoulders back and look at other people in a very man to man way and know I'm not beneath you. There's nothing you can do to me. I'm right here on the same level, same plane level.
Well, it's inspirational. And the way that I always look at live streams is the person who needs to hear the message is here watching. Somebody else here needs to hear your full 360 and now sitting on this side of the courtroom and covering it and covering these cases. And it's very inspirational. I know for a lot of people who come from AR's background or who have been touched by incarceration in their lives. So I appreciate you saying that, AR. And I want to just go to your closing sentiments with my two last closing points, which are this case is decided now. The case against Bryan Kohberger is decided. And this upcoming hearing and the hearings that we've heard coming up into this point, the trial is what's left over. The trial is what they want us to hear. So that's the first point. And then the other point I want to drive home is when we're talking about all of these things, whether it's the text message or the K-bar or the circumstances of the IGG or how they got to Bryan Kohberger, at the end of the day, all that's necessary for a man to walk or a hung jury or to be convicted innocent is reasonable doubt. And there are a lot of things coming up, particularly that are going to be addressed in this upcoming hearing that include the location of Bryan Kohberger at the time of the crime, which was allegedly in Lewiston. So just remember that when we talk about the standards for somebody to be convicted, it's beyond reasonable doubt. And that's all Ann Taylor has to put in the minds and the thoughts of this jury. And is it going to rise to that level? And and just back to the point is please hit that notification bell, hit that sub, and AR and I are going to bring you the most accurate coverage we can for that upcoming 9th hearing. It's so important, the 9th and the 10th. So,
Yep, Kiki, I look forward to working with you directly on that. I mean, if you want firsthand, like I will be at the courthouse. I will be every step of the way that Bryan Kohberger's in that courtroom. I will be in that courtroom. And then I will step right out and we'll bring you exactly what was said and how it was said. And we'll even have my wife, her perspective from a normal, not criminal background like mine, but somebody that's had to endure it as well. It's going to be very interesting. And I want people to fully understand. I'm not going in there as a guilter. And I'm not going in there to prove innocence. I'm going in there to watch the process and ensure that it's innocent until proven guilty, and that the perception of Bryan Kohberger is brought to you on a very truthful playing field. And then we'll be able to speak about a lot of things that happened in that courtroom on an honest level. I'm not going to create any narratives or anything of that nature. So it should be very interesting. Should be good. Should be very, very good.
I'm so looking forward to it. I'm so grateful for it. But I just want to say, as somebody who, grew up in a media family, like the number one rule in journalism used to be, if you didn't go there, it didn't happen. meaning a journalist needs to get off their ass and go to the place where they're reporting on. So you truly are acting as a citizen journalist, and you're truly elevating our podcast by showing up for these hearings. And if you don't know the history of our podcast, AR's channel, AR has been to many of these hearings in the past when the trial was being held in Latah County. I'm sorry, the hearings were being held in Latah County. So he has a baseline. He has the initial impressions of all of these characters in play. Twiz does too. If you ever want to ask Twiz, he attended all those hearings in Latah. But it's an interesting thing to have you going to the 9th and the 10th hearing, having that baseline. You're not just coming into a cold turkey, like a lot of people who are like, okay, I've been raising money. Now it's my time to start going to the Kohberger hearing. You know the players. You know the way they looked a year ago. You know the way they looked 2 years ago. And it's so invaluable. I really do look forward to it. I just want to add some more to the value of what's coming up in this 9th.
Well, I want people to understand too, we're not asking for people to help fund us get there or anything of that nature. Jen and I, we're making the trip ourselves. We're taking the dogs. We're going to drive up. It's about a 10-hour drive. Jen is taking 10 days off of work, so we're going to have plenty of time to spend. I believe we're going to get into Boise on the 7th. In the evening, we'll check into our hotel and we'll be there the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th. And we'll spend some time around the courthouse. I will bring you some live. I will go to the Ada County Jail so that you can get a feel for the jail itself. Unfortunately, I know it, so I know how to get around it. I know what doors to walk into. So been there, I know it. But I'll bring that to you guys as well. And not only will you get to enjoy what Kiki and I have to offer and what we can bring, but don't forget about my wife's channel, Pity's Go Stripping, because it is a animal lovers, but we do travel with our pets. So we'd like to show off where you can stay with your pets, where to take them when you're in certain areas, the different parks, so that you can have a good time. Annie Ruler, I did already put in to have a press pass, so that I can have kind of some privileges when I get up there and not get booted out of places. I'm going the JLR route. No, I'm kidding.
We didn't just say that.
That was bad. But I'm excited. I'm going to meet Twizzlestick up there. I've invited him to stay with Jen and I when we get up there. And I get to hang out with him a little bit. Him and I have some ideas during our lives that we can bring to everybody as well. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Okay, so now that you are saying all of this, and I know you're bringing the dogs up, and I know you guys are going to be staying, and you're going to have Twizzlestick with you. I just want to ask you if you have the opportunity, and I think it would be great if you even brought the dogs around with you, because dogs comfort people. But I feel like if you could ask some of the surrounding people in Ada County how they feel, I mean, not in a way that taints somebody's impression, but just honest, raw feelings from the people that they're going to be sampling this jury pool from. It'll be fascinating to just hear opinions on the hearing, on the judge, on the jail system, on what the word on the street is about people. The word on the street is going to be very interesting, what people are thinking, but it would just be nice to get the temperature of a random person, at the coffee shop.
And Jen had an amazing idea for that. We're going to take the dogs to the dog parks in and around town, letting our dogs mingle with the other dogs. And then I'm going to literally have discussions with people on what they may have heard, what they may know. And I'm not doing it like I'm not trying to give them what I know or what I think. I just want them to give me kind of an idea of what it's like for them to have a case like this in their community, what it's like, for the state itself, how they feel as though their jurisdictional, courts are handling it. How do they feel the prosecutors are doing? I want to get their take. I want to get Idaho's idea of how they feel all this is happening, and not give much of mine to them, because I want it to be strictly an honest portrayal. Like, many of them are not going to want to get on camera and do an interview, but if I could take down good notes and Jen can help me audio record some of this, I think it would be a good thing to get the actual feelings in the area, and how many people have already found him guilty, how many people have still hope innocent until proven guilty. It's going to be just an interesting trip, and I'm going to do it with the best respect that I can, and I'm going to be caring and compassionate, but I think it'll be a lot of fun to have the dogs up there, and people can enjoy that as well. um, and that's what it's about. Like, when we travel with our Bayou will be in the courtroom, just so everybody understands. When I go into the courtroom, Bayou is an actual service dog. He will be right underneath our feet in the courtroom. So Bayou will get to hear everything too. So if you have any questions, please go to Pitties Go Stripping after the court hearing, and Bayou will give you his 2 cents on everything he heard as well. So
it's just really nice to have your representation there too. I guess aside from the content that we're going to be creating, like, there's some feeling of like the seriousness and respect we're paying to the case by the fact that you're going out there, and we just really appreciate it from our viewers' standpoint. So thank you to Jen too. We want to make sure we're thanking Pitty's Gone Stripping. You can find her in the chat, follow her over. I was modding right now. I'd drop a link to Jen's channel.
Well, and I do have to say thank you to my wife, and always I say thank you to your husband as well. But for those of you that do kind of have the gamut of what's going on over here, Jen has been a solid rock. I'm so appreciative, like I said before, of all the outpouring of love and the backing in regards to the health situations that we're dealing with over here. And I want people to fully understand there's no crying going on over here on this side. There's no giving up in this household. There's no, like, we're completely positive about everything going on. The battle's being won every day. I know the vision thing, like, trust me, I didn't like sitting, and I sent Swamp, you can attest to this, just at the initial meeting with the eye doctor, I sent Swamp the actual audio recording of the doctor yelling at me, asking me if I was paying attention to her while she was talking. But we're going through every day, and we're doing well, and all of you guys have been a big part of that, and I'm so appreciative. But very positive on this side. And I think, Swamp, it's pretty serious. I'm glad that I'm going to have April to be able to get to the court hearings like, we had planned. And then the next step of that is going to be ensuring that I can recover and get in a position to be at the trial. I think that's going to be it's going to be something I really want to do, but I think that the health situation, Swamp, more than like a lot of these people do because we talk every day, but that's going to be the next real battle. That's going to be the one that's going to take some work and some recovery, and hopefully by August, hopefully we're able to make that trip as well. So that's what the game plan is. We definitely want to get there in August, and we're going to keep battling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just so the audience knows what AR is referencing with all his the complex treatments that he's getting, He has to get a series of surgeries. They have to be layered. It's a process, and they have to do it in a certain way, in a delicate way, so that AR can preserve, all the things that his health. And so, wow, it's an inspiration because a lot of us face health problems, or we have family members that face health problems. And knowing that you can get up every day and you still give time to your passion, you still give time to other people, and it's a great testimony for other people too. When you're going through something and you don't know what to do, help other people, turn to other people, because I mean, God knows AR's not doing this here, to make $1 million. AR is doing this because he loves it. And it is inspirational, because when you're facing these things, that you get up and you know what motivates you. And it makes me feel better about what I do too, to see how much you come back to us and time you give us, and you enjoy being here with us, and we enjoy having you. And so, I just wanted to say a little piece on
I appreciate that. And I know it doesn't get out a lot, but I'll just give. So I am doing chemo for cancer. I am also doing dialysis, which most people would know is kidney failure for diabetes. The vision stuff, Swamp, this is something I never even thought. Like, I thought this was just a quick and simple process. I didn't know, like, to get stuff fixed with the eyes, you literally have to set an appointment with this doctor, and then an appointment with that doctor. And then, I mean, it's crazy. And my wife has just been such a blessing, being able to get me to and from these appointments, and spend the time and help me do this, because I couldn't do it on my own. But and I want to say thank you, everybody that has gifted memberships, and you've done the super chats, and the people behind the scenes that go all out and truly help with the financial aspect of giving me the love with that Sky Blue $50 donation. There's just some amazing people within our community, and I can't say thank you to all of you because it would take so long. But just know, Swamp and I love you guys. We appreciate you guys. We're not here to become, like you said, millionaires. We're here because this is what we enjoy doing, and we love the community that we're doing it with. So I'm going to end it by saying my just outright thank you to everybody. I love all of you. I thank all of you, even the people that hate me, that don't respect me, that want to put me down. Hey, I still appreciate you coming and telling me that, because you spent some quality time with me, and I appreciate it. And Kiki, I'm gonna let you wrap up the show, but just know as well, Kiki, I couldn't say it enough. I absolutely adore you, and you are my partner in true crime, and I'm couldn't be more thankful of that. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for saying that. All right. Well, if I've got to end this show, first off, thank you, AR, for inviting me on panel tonight, getting me to do a live stream. I appreciate your motivation, and my audience appreciates it too. Thank you, Jen, for giving me your husband for a few hours to do this live stream. And I hope you come join us, and I look forward to seeing you guys there. I want to thank the live chat, both the live chat and AR's, because he has a tremendous live chat right now. I think in total, we have well over 300 people watching us live, which is great. And we just want to say we appreciate the energy. We appreciate the think tank and the constantly keeping us on our toes and answering those questions. So thank you so much to the live chat, and thank you to our mods, both AR's mods and mine. You keep the chat clean. I just, you keep us protected, although I don't even think we've had any negative energy in the chat all night. So just really want to appreciate you guys. I want to thank my Discord server on top of that, who helps me with things, and my researchers. I really appreciate you guys keeping me up to this incredibly large document release that's happened recently. And lastly, we really want to thank the viewer, because we know that a channel is not a person. It's not one person. A channel is a group of people. And we are nothing without you, the viewers. So we thank you so much for tuning in. For everybody who's just watching and doesn't know what to say in the live chat, we just appreciate your viewership. And we would love if you let us know if you like this video on your way out. Let us know what you felt. If you want to give it a thumbs up and let us know you liked it, or give it a thumbs down and let us know you didn't like it. It helps us to know which content you want to create for us. And we would ask nothing of you. We just really appreciate you listening to what we have to say. But we would love if you considered subscribing, because between the two of us, we put out content daily, and we just love to have you be part of our true crime family. So AR, thank you so much for bringing me up here, and I do appreciate your partnership in this podcast.
And that's Kiki working 6 days a week, and I get 1 day a week. When she says we put it out daily, it's because she puts in 6 days a week and I put in 1. So, I'm going to try to help her out a little bit. But please, everybody, before we let you go, if you're in my chat, please venture over to Kiki's channel at Swamp Rose, official Swamp Rose. Give her a like, give her a thumbs up, give her a subscription. But also remember, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow we have a very good opportunity to meet with a special lady in Bootsy. We're going to be doing a live. It's going to be earlier tomorrow than what my typical time is. More kind of on a Kiki normal time. So we'll be starting 7 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be 4 p.m. West Coast time. We'll probably just have a good time. We'll try to keep it within a reasonable amount of time, even though sometimes we just want to talk and talk and talk. But excited about that one tomorrow. So please join us. And it will be streaming on Kiki's channel as well as mine, as well as Bootsy. So I want to really get people to jump on these two creators, both Bootsy and Kiki, two amazing women that really put their heart and soul into this community. Their voices are important. And and thank you, DB. 10 gifted Swamp Rose memberships. That's awesome. Love it.
Thank you for the blessing.
Love it. Yep.
Thank you.
So all of you guys are amazing. I'm going to shut up. We're going to head out, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Have a good night.
Love you guys. Thank you.